Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grand Slam. So for those of you who are our regular attendees, you know this wraps up our series of four now, Women in IoT COE panels over the course of 2021. My name is Michelle Null, and I have, as Jennifer mentioned, served as the co-chair for the COE over the past 2 years, and also serve on the advisory board of the IoT community. And clearly, I love very much being part of this community. In my current role at Red Hat, I am leading edge-focused product marketing in the Ansible business unit, so doing a lot of work around automation at the edge. And today I'm joined by a fabulous group of women who I have gotten to know better over the past year, and it's been wonderful. And I'm so excited for today. And I'm also thrilled to have a former colleague, Marcia, here on the panel today. So you're in for a great session. So let's do a quick round of intros. Amanda, I'll turn it to you first.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I don't think many of us are a stranger to those of you who have been attending the slams throughout the year. So welcome back if so, and hello if not. I'm Amanda. I'm the other co-chair for the Women in IoT Center of Excellence. And by day, I work for Cisco. I run our digital marketing team on the IoT side, and just ecstatic to be back and to be here. Please submit your questions at any point so we can make this a little bit more collaborative and as engaging for you all as possible. So with that, I don't know if we're going in order here, but I'm just going to pass it over then to Kelly on the slide.
Thanks, Amanda. And hello, everybody. I'm with Amanda in the sense that many of you, obviously, I hope you have attended our other slams. We're so happy you're here with us. I'm the founder, CEO, and now CTO of CB Technologies, CBT. We are very focused on IoT and OT-IT convergence. I've always been on the technical side, 42 years into my career, and really loving joining all the other women and all the women that we find in this network that are all about how we can continue to recruit to engineering and technology. I'm going to hand it off to Marcia.
Okay, I'm Marcia Walker. I'm currently a global industry principal with SAS, focusing on how to use analytics technology with IoT data. Although I've worked with IoT for well over a decade, back since the days they called it sensor data, particularly in the industrial space. I think the reason Michelle invited me today is because she wanted me to share the rendition of Do You T What IoT in honor of the holiday season. If you would like the full song with both Michelle and I performing, it is posted on my LinkedIn, and I will hand it over to, well, I guess we've covered everyone now. So back to the moderator.
I'll do a quick recap of the COE. Amanda and I'll kind of kick it off, and then we will turn it over to Jennifer for leading us today. So quick recap of what this group is and what we do. So our main goal here is, as you can imagine, is around creating and sustaining an inclusive culture, and really in doing so, advancing the development of IoT solutions. How do we do that? So we are involved with facilitating discussions, knowledge sharing, sharing learnings, best practices, and just reinforcing that inclusive and diverse thinking. And so along these lines, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge, if you did not see this morning, there's some great announcements over social media from the IoT community unveiling the results of the IoT Premier League 2021. Season finale. So that just went out this morning. Congratulations to everyone who was recognized for amazing work in 2021. For those of you who are listening who may not have any idea what the Premier League is, let me give a 30-second summary. It started in 2019. It's essentially a data-driven tool, and it is designed to track inspiring and engaging social media accounts across the IoT landscape. It's there so that you'll see individual thought leaders in there, some corporate handles and media industry analysts as well. And the results that I mentioned are on the LinkedIn channel for IoT community, as well as the Twitter channel. So the results are great, and congrats and shout out to Elitsa Kromova, who is PL Woman of the Year, with all of the engagement that we've seen from her, which has been amazing over the past year. I will make a comment though, and I would be remiss if I didn't, because we're on a panel that really is focusing on diversity and inclusion. The list is not as diverse as we had hoped in terms of like the final, kind of results that came out. And so I would just I want to use the opportunity to just reiterate the IoT community as a whole. And one of the reasons I love being a part of it is that they are, or we are committed to providing this platform for women and diverse perspectives, and just to be seen and heard, and really trying to move the needle for this inclusive representation. And so I think this just acknowledges that what we know is that we need to continue to recognize diversity, equity, and inclusion, and focus on it continually, right? And it has to continue to be top of mind. I think whether it's personally or with those around us, that we can encourage, there's still a lot of work to do. And that's a lot of what you'll hear from us today, sharing practical ways that we've learned, and ideas that the panelists have in that regard. But I would just say, please, the theme across today and in the calls to action at the end, we really want to encourage women and diverse, those with diverse perspectives to raise their hand and just step up to the plate to participate in these things. If you want to join the Premier League, I'll put a link in the chat. That's just one of many ways that clearly that you can become involved. But raising your hand to speak at an event, you might think, well, so-and-so is more qualified than me or whatever, but we've got to take action, right? If we want to see the diversity or the diversification that we're all hoping for. So we'll hear more about that throughout the panel. Our panel, if you move to the next slide, we're really focused, our COE as a whole is really focused on 3 pillars: awareness, pipeline, and education. And so today we're going to spend most of the session really talking around topics in the education pillar. But Amanda's going to give a quick summary of our awareness and pipeline pillars, just for the audience who may not be familiar. Amanda?
For sure. And what I would recommend too, we have done a focus panel now on each of our pillars. So those recordings are available if you have a vested interest, for example, in one that you're seeing here, whereas today's topic of focus is education. Please check out the recordings or send any of us a message on social media to get that recording, or, of course, the IoT community as well. So in a nutshell, as Michelle mentioned, we have these 3 pillars, awareness really being exactly what it sounds like, increasing the level of awareness for women in the space, making sure that women are getting their name out there as well, as thought leaders, as subject matter experts, by writing articles, being featured in our community newsletter, by empowering women in IoT to leverage social media to build their brands. On the pipeline front, it's about building the future for women in IoT. How do we develop the talent that exists today? How do we develop the talent that will exist tomorrow? We also look, to each of you really as to how you can help us grow this pipeline and be that voice for the generations to come. And we're looking for many people. You'll hear this as a theme throughout today's session, that our call to action also lies with you. We're looking for you to join us. We're looking for you to come and be a speaker, for example, maybe on a panel such as this, but maybe in a session that we run to the IoT community audience. So, as we go along, I would ask yourself, how can I get involved? Where can I lend a hand? Where is my expertise that could go, to benefit the pipeline side as well as the awareness side? So Michelle, I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to add around those 2 pillars. I know we've definitely talked through them in depth on previous panels, but wanted to give a quick summary.
Yeah, you covered it well. And so we are ready to kick it over to Jennifer. Jennifer, thanks so much for moderating and leading us today. Over to you.
Thanks. I'm the CFO for Link Labs. I'm super excited to be here. We do asset tracking and monitoring, have a comprehensive IoT platform. And today, this panel, we're going to be talking about education. So from 3 different perspectives: skill building, diversity and inclusion, and next gen STEM. So as we think about this first one with skill building, IoT and industrial IoT, it's being called the 4th industrial revolution. When combined with artificial intelligence and machine learning, some are considering that the 5th industrial revolution. We're moving very, very rapidly. This is touching every endeavor, an aspect of human interaction, and the scale with which adoption and change are occurring is happening just at an extremely rapid pace. So as we think about education, skill building for those who are already in the industry is one of the first pillars that we wanted to talk about. So ladies, as you were beginning your career, what were the most important skill building areas and how did you grow in those areas? And what was the impact of developing those skills? Amanda, I'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to a topic that's near and dear to my heart. That's also the first bullet on here. So as a side hustle, as I affectionately call it, I teach personal branding and I speak on the topic of social media and personal branding. I would love, for example, to share my passion for this topic to women in IoT. I think regardless of if you're in IoT or any industry, it is an incredibly important element of succeeding in your career, of building a name and brand for yourself and being able to then pass those skills, whatever your superpower is, onto others. Personal branding, especially as it relates to social media, is steeped in those strengths. It's also steeped in the content that we provide to our audiences. What is the value that they are gaining from it? So I would love to see us as a community, identify our own superpowers first off. What do we have to give back? What have we learned in our career along the way that would be powerful and impactful for either others and other women in IoT or up and coming women in IoT? It could be something as simple as, putting together an effective presentation or storytelling from data, skills that are relevant regardless of if you're in a very technical role or in a marketing or sales role. So that would be, an area that I would focus on too, is how do we provide that strength back, to others?
Great, thank you. Marcia, do you have thoughts on this?
I do, and so I'd like to build on what she said. I have good news for the members of the audience, which is the skills that are necessary are also the skills that are fun to build. It's really tempting to focus on the technical skills, and those are of course important. Those are also perishable, and they age out really quickly. But the timeless skills that will really serve you well in your career are what many refer to as the soft skills, like listening, being present, being able to focus on what's important, and being able to tell stories. And those are skills that can be developed. So from a listening perspective, the best training I have ever received is in doing improv. Improv is not about getting up there and being funny or thinking fast. Improv is essentially about listening to what the other people are truly telling you. And you would be amazed in today's noise of so much deluge of stuff on the internet, how few people are actually listening. But listening to what people really tell you and then responding. And in terms of storytelling, practicing writing skills, practicing communicating with different audiences, absolutely important. I'm very proud of my technical accomplishments. I have 8 patents. I've won multiple engineering awards, but I've gotten where I am not because I can technically do those things, but because I can explain why they matter to engineers as well as CEOs. And that's a very, very essential skill to do. And then the final one is around the stress management and being able to focus on what's important. Digital transformation requires human transformation, and human transformation requires courage. And courage can be trained. So I strongly recommend participating in martial arts. My favorite one is known as Systema, Systema. It's a Russian martial art. And it has done wonders for me in terms of being able to really stay calm in very stressful work situations and be kind to my colleagues in times of stress. So that's what I would recommend: improv, storytelling, and martial arts.
That's great. Thank you. Very helpful. So what are some ways that individuals who are currently in the IoT space can sharpen their skills and grow themselves professionally? Michelle?
Sure, there's several that come to top of mind, and the first is really consortia and communities such as this IoT community. I think that it's easy to get caught up in our own work environments and kind of the own 4 walls of our companies, and I think that the more that we can expand and the more opportunities we have to expand into other organizations such as this in the IoT space or whatever field it may be, to really connect with others. And I've learned so much from from the others, as well as I would say what ties into that for me has been partnerships as well, especially in the world of IoT. I think it's well known now that no one company can have an end-to-end IoT solution, and it takes this ecosystem. And so I think that one of the things that I've proactively tried to do, whether it was directly part of my role or not, is to really get engaged and have those conversations with the companies that my company's partnering with. I think that I've learned a lot more about, even from women on this panel, right? The domains that that they cover are different than some of the some of the ones within IoT that I've been focused on, and so that has been very helpful for me personally, as far as sharpening skills and developing. I guess the third thing I would say is, well, I'll say four. The third is training. And I think that it's very easy to get caught up in our day job and all of our action items. I think that there has to be deliberate focus on training. And I know many companies heavily encourage this. I know for example, at Red Hat, we have each quarter a day of learning. That's where employees are strongly encouraged to go on the learning portal and take courses that either are technical or professionally developing sessions. And so strongly encourage that, and deliberately making time for it, because if we don't deliberately make time for it, it's just easy for it not to happen. And then the fourth thing being mentorships, which is just that, again, a lot of us have talked about this before. They didn't necessarily exist very much 20 plus years ago when we started our careers, but they are, many companies offer them. Many people do them on the side, mentoring, those in college or those new in their careers. And I can't underestimate the importance of that. And I also want to say that can continue even later on in careers. I had Marcia, I have to give a shout out to you, because I don't know, it's probably been 6 or 7 years now when we first started working in the IoT space, and back when I was at SAS. And it's easy to kind of think, well, that all these people are so much more technical than me, or they have so much more knowledge. Well, actually, Marcia was, she kind of was very, I'll just say she was very encouraging, and taught me a lot in terms of stepping up and raising my hand to do things. So I think that it can happen throughout the career, not just early on in the mentorships.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Michelle. We tend to think about mentoring as for people who are really coming into this as a new career, but all of us need someone we can work with, look up to, speak into our lives and our careers. And having the openness to have a mentor as well as be a mentor, I think, can really help as well. So thanks for pointing that out. All right, Kelly, any thoughts on how individuals in the IoT space can sharpen their skills and grow professionally?
Absolutely. I'm going to add on to what Michelle said, because when you look at the ecosystems of the companies that we work with, it's very diverse. What I'm seeing is the OEMs and the independent software vendors joining in with education, and a lot of this in the community college areas, even down into the high schools. And what we're seeing is a push toward curriculum that's for certifications, not to go in and get an AA or to get a 4-year degree, but looking at places where you might be able to hop in and get a 6-week certification, even remotely. If there isn't education around where you live, start scouring around a little bit and see, because we are seeing it become very focused in very centric areas, down to even like connected worker, where community colleges are creating these certification classes. They're working jointly with corporations within their community and focusing in on what those organizations need in the sense of workers coming out of either high school or community college, and in some cases college. So I would say really take a look at the education that's available around you.
There's a huge need in the workforce right now for new employees, and some of those programs I think will help bring in additional employees, which will be great for the industry. All right, so we know, COVID's had a major impact on the workforce in general. We're calling it the Great Resignation. Up to 3% of Americans are resigning their jobs every month, and women are bearing the brunt of this. McKinsey and Company reported in their study recently that 1 in 3 women has considered leaving the workforce or downshifting their career in 2021. This is a significant increase from the 1 in 4 that were considering this at the beginning of the pandemic, and then much greater increase even prior to that. Their survey cited burnout, stress, and exhaustion as some of those driving factors. How can IoT companies combat the burnout factor for all employees, but particularly for women? Kelly?
Off mute. For the majority of us, through the pandemic, it's been work from home. And I've kind of been in that position for decades, that a lot of stuff was work from home. What has always happened is a blur between work and life. And what I found through the pandemic is I was working 12 and 14-hour days. I might have taken a little break here and there. And we monitored through at CBT, that was one of the things is if we can't have people in an office, then we need to make sure we keep that personal touch there. So our push was to train our managers to really look at each worker individually. We have a system called Predictive Index that we use that's kind of a behavioral survey that also helped us understand what motivates individuals, what helps them, how do you manage them best, how do you help them learn better, you know, what are they passionate about and what they're doing. And I think that was the big thing of really bumping up connectivity, making sure that you're touching base with them, especially with women, because I mean, you think about it, it might be stereotypical, but it is. You're taking care of kids. If these kids are home, you're also trying to homeschool them or get them onto their classes while you're doing your work. Of course, there would be complete burnout, and not that men weren't involved in that as well, but I'm going to guess that it was heavier on the female side. So I think just really, no matter what company it is, focus on that individuality and really figure out how you can help them stay within their job, being passionate about it and really feeling supported.
That's great. We've also used Predictive Index, and if you haven't heard of it, you can check their website, but it's a great tool for helping people find what they're best at, and then using that, we use it to help match employees to the right job roles. Because when they're passionate and excited about what they're doing, it really makes a difference with productivity and with avoiding long-term burnout. Marcia, any thoughts on how to combat burnout?
Well, you actually touched on exactly the thing, which is when people are happy with what they're doing. I read a study from Microsoft yesterday that was showing a lot of what Kelly was talking about how they found, you know, they're able to monitor employees using Teams and so forth and see that they are just working too hard and too long. Energy is a two-sided equation. There's energy in and energy out, and we do tend to focus on the energy outside and say, well, how can we minimize the energy loss? And I would encourage leaders to focus on how can we optimize the energy in. If people focus on what they're curious about and what they're passionate about and what they love to do, that is going to energize them, and that is going to counteract the burnout. I know when I was developing the patents, I was putting in 12 and 14 hours days, and I was loving every minute of it. And I mean, I felt more energized when it was over as opposed to less. Whereas if I'm spending time doing administrivia or filling out reports or doing things that I can't draw a line of how what I'm doing is going to move the needle at the end, it just makes me tired. I mean, that's a natural human instinct. So leaders should ask themselves, is this activity truly necessary? Is this going to inspire, or is this going to exhaust them? And if it is an absolutely necessary activity that's going to exhaust them, how can I then balance that out with something that's going to inspire? What projects can I give them that can make them excited and make them enthusiastic? So let's focus on the inspiration and the energizing side of the burnout and not just on the energy out. Back to you.
That's great. I think they say when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
Yep.
And it makes a difference. So several of you have come up through technology over the last 20 plus years where you were often the only woman in the room. What advice could you give to other women on how to advocate for themselves and for others?
I'm gonna jump in on this one. My motto is always show up, come into the room, because I can tell you early in my career, I didn't feel comfortable with that. And I would avoid that. And I kept getting invited to come into, whether it was quarterly roundtables with Meg Whitman, who was really staunch about inclusion. And what I learned through this is by showing up and sitting in there, as uncomfortable as I was early in my career of doing that, what I learned is I'm no different than anybody else that's sitting at that table. I bring value to what's going on with the discussion, and I bring a different perspective, which is something I think we really need to focus on. We bring many times a completely different perspective, and it is needed to be in that room, because when it's just one of us, it really needs to be 2, 3, 4 of us that can dive in, get into the conversation, and it just helps it be both a better conversation. It could be better outcomes. It could be better everything. But I think that the quickest way to do that is to show up. As Sheryl Sandberg said, lean in, don't feel uncomfortable, get past your being uncomfortable, find a mentor or find a champion that helps you get past this if that's what you need, but just make sure you show up, and I guarantee you, you will become more and more comfortable.
Michelle, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I love what Kelly said about showing up, and I think that is critical. I always say I've experienced, over the course of the decades that I've been in the industry, is that, as hard as different chapters may have been, right, is that the most growth that I experienced in whatever the role was always occurred as a direct result of me stepping outside of my comfort zone, stepping up to do something that I wasn't, necessarily, 100% confident in, but once I actually would do whatever it is, right, that it helps in building confidence. It helps in, just in the next steps, right, and feeling more confident to show up kind of again and again and volunteer for things. I will say that I talked a little bit about mentorships before, and thankfully there are. It is a lot more common now than it was back when I started my career, and I think that I can't stress that enough. And I think I actually had a male colleague who jumped in and helped me early on. My first role at IBM, and it was a more technical role, and I was involved in product management, and I had to speak and do a presentation at a 1,000-person sales kickoff, and that was I'm gonna say a little bit intimidating, but having him kind of by my side while I'm like practicing, and it makes a huge difference. So I think those in the audience who may have other colleagues who they can help support and things like that, and encouraging them to step outside of what you might normally feel comfortable doing, is you're going to reap huge rewards professionally and personally by doing so.
That's great. I love how you talked about practicing. We hear the phrase practice makes perfect. I don't know about making it perfect, but practice does make it more comfortable. And the more you do something, the more comfortable you get with those situations. The other thing I found too is doing it first. Those hard to do tasks or those uncomfortable things, if you do it first, and I do it to get it over with, but it can also just help you be more confident and comfortable as you do those more repeatedly. So that's great thoughts. Thank you, Kelly and Michelle. What are some successful ways that you've seen companies in IoT promote diversity and inclusion? I mean, promoting diversity and inclusion is really important to all of us here at IoT Community. So what are some successful things that you've seen companies do? Amanda?
Yeah, I'm super excited to share this with you all. It's a program that's not unique to Cisco. We are a partner of the program called 110, and one is spelt out, so ONE, and then the number 10. It is this incredible program where it seeks to help African American individuals. It's not specific to IoT, it can be in any industry or any vertical, but it's African American individuals who do not have a 4-year college degree. They may have been in the Army or the Armed Forces. They might have, some community college experience, or in many cases, they might not have any, post-high school educational experience at all. And it connects them to companies like Cisco and many other amazing organizations out there, to give them the opportunity to come and be a part of corporate America. And so we were approached as hiring managers at Cisco and brought up to speed on the program. And then, we're asked, hey, do you want to be part of this cohort? And it was my first and only opportunity I've ever had to know that something like this existed, first off. But then it was such a no-brainer to say, absolutely, let's do it. How does it work? So now I'm so happy to share, in the last month, we hired 2 individuals out of the program. They've been with us for 4 weeks in 2 different roles. One is a data analytics role. The other is a campaigns role for IoT marketing. And it has been, it's very early stages, but honestly, one of the more rewarding experiences in my career, getting to know these 2 individuals, to understand their life circumstances, has been, so eye-opening. And they also provide, to an earlier comment, having that diverse thought in a room, a different perspective, different ideas. At the end of the day, that's not necessarily requiring, this strict 4-year degree. The skills that I'm seeing and the experience that I'm having with a program such as this is so much bigger than things that I've been part of in the past. So if you haven't heard of 110, there's also a similar program, I believe, called Year Up. I think I've heard that in the past and have heard very, very positive things on Year Up as well. But check out the 110 program. It has been a true blessing to be part of it and to experience this, and I highly recommend it for others who are looking for an organized and I would say very thoughtful approach to bringing diversity into your team or your organization.
That's great. I love how you talked about the mentorship and the diversity and how that's so professionally rewarding, and it's increasing your own professional growth as well. You're pouring into someone else, but it also comes back the other way and it grows you. That's just so great to hear. Marcia, I know you're involved in some programs as well.
Yeah, I'd say the experience that has been most gratifying to me in my entire career, and when I'm sitting in my nursing home when I'm old, I'll be telling everybody about in my rocking chair, is the transformation that took place at Rockwell Automation when I was an employee there. I was there for almost 10 years, and it was very challenging being a female. I literally went to a conference once where they had closed the women's restrooms because they weren't expecting any women to be there. And they had turned them all into men's room. And, being excluded really hurts. And the transformation that took place was really understanding the difference between responsibility and blame. I was blaming myself at the beginning, thinking, what am I doing wrong? What should I do differently? And what Rockwell did, to their credit, and I would recommend them as an employer to any woman in the world of IoT, is they had their senior executives attend a program called White Men as Full Diversity Partners. So I'll repeat that, White Men as Full Diversity Partners. And the approach from this program is that instead of the usual, oh, well, women need mentoring and women should network, which is basically putting the blame on the person who's being marginalized and excluded, they say to the white men in power, what can you do, given the power that you have, to build a more inclusive culture? You are not to blame for the way things are, but you are responsible for changing it. And I have to say, the transformation that I saw that took place warms my heart. They ended up winning a Catalyst Award, which is one of the most premier diversity awards that there is in the industry. I have seen how the culture has helped everyone, regardless of what their level of diversity is, if it's because from a marginalized group of race or sexual orientation or religion or what have you, They're allowing everyone to contribute their full selves. And it was really a very subtle but powerful culture change. It shows up in the business results. Their stock has gone through the roof. Their employee retention and their ability to be an employer of choice has changed. And so I cannot say enough good things about that program. White Men as Full Diversity Partners, and they are willing to share their experiences with other organizations. And again, be curious as opposed to assuming you know the answer, and find out what can we do to change this. So back to you.
I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit here, but you talked about how exclusion hurts. So when that happens, because it is happening and it does happen, and you're faced with that hurt, could you share how you've handled that and maybe what you would recommend for other people to do in situations like that?
Sure, I'll share how I dealt with it back in 10 years ago when I was young and stupid, and how I deal with it now, which is a lot more effective. So 10 years ago, I just internalized it and felt wounded and kind of crawled off into my hole. I'll give an example. I came up with an invention that was patentable. My employer chose not to patent it, but said, hey, you need to write an article about this so that it will be out in the public domain so no one else can patent it. And when I submitted it for publication, it came out in the premier journal and it had my male colleague's name on it. And when I called up the publication to say, I don't understand, this was my article, why does it have his name on it? And they said, oh, we assumed you were the secretary that had sent it in on his behalf. So the next time I had a great idea, I just crawled off into my hole and didn't share it. What I do now, which has been absolutely life-changing and isn't easy, is I tell people that I'm hurt. So I've had incidences with COVID. Since we're sharing, I am immunocompromised, so COVID has been extremely challenging for me, and it wasn't something I would have advertised in the past. And I have had to just speak up. And I think most people they're not hurting you intentionally. And if you say, this really hurt me, and here's why, that's where the transformation starts to take place, with being authentic about what you're experiencing. Not telling them how to fix it, just saying, here's what I'm experiencing. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I hope that was helpful for people listening on this panel as well. All right, so we can't have an education pillar without talking about the next generation of workers. And we hit a little bit on this last time with pipeline. That's mainly what we were talking about there. But focusing on next gen STEM and ways to encourage learning in IoT. How can IoT companies encourage and participate in some of these next gen STEM programs? Michelle?
Sure. I have to say, so the companies I've worked for, I've been blessed in the fact that they definitely have put a lot of work towards developing programs in this regard. IBM, lots of opportunity where I was able to go in the classrooms and talk to students and work on projects. SAS, where it's programming little Sphero IoT device balls and navigating those through the classroom. That is super fun. And then now at Red Hat, so Red Hat has programs as well. And so through the women's leadership community, I found out about the K through 12 STEM Speaker Bureau and a volunteer outreach program. And so really helping the K through 12 students and learning about diversity in STEM. And what's been really cool too is sharing, being able to share open source principles. So if you don't know, Red Hat is open culture and open source technology. So that's been fun. And then as well as non-traditional paths to STEM is also good to share, I think, and good for especially high schoolers to hear kind of how I would say my path is probably more not non-traditional. So programs like that are just fantastic, and just seeing students and students seeing the females in the classroom who are excited about the technology and who just make it more achievable seeming and understandable. And so I think that has been really rewarding. I love when companies come up with awesome ways to engage the K through 12 group. And Kelly, I know you have some awesome experiences as well.
I do. Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to focus on one, and not that there aren't just tons of organizations out there, but I found the National Center for Women and Information Technology. So it's ncwit.org. And what I love about this group, it's focused on diverse high school, collegiate, and professional women, over 22,000 strong right now. And what it does is it is kind of the epicenter for organizing and uniting 1,500 different organizations that are all focused on women in tech in some shape or form. What's great about that is not only can you approach them and look at it, and it's free for the women. There's all kinds of corporate sponsors, including CPT, but there's also this network of women who, whether you're high school through professional, you can join into that group. You can look at all the different offerings they have. It also gives you that network to fall back on. You can have conversations. They hold job fairs. They do everything imaginable. So I think that for myself, because you're always finding great organizations out there, but to find someone who's focused on organizing all of that to help you figure out your path and your journey and get you connected into the right organizations, I think is just a stellar group.
Thank you. That's great. So as we think about education, we've spent the last 21 talking about the different pillars of women in IoT within the IoT community. And as we go into next year, we wanted to bring some more education type things to the group. And so, Kevin, I believe we've got a survey available to send out to people because we want to hear from you. As just right now, he'll pop that up and you can choose which ones are most important to you, or which ones would you like to hear first. Personal branding, networking, and social media, some technical training, or leadership skills. And we've got the dates here for next year's SLAM events. We've got April 8th and 9th, June 22nd and 23rd, August 19th, and then December 9th of 2022. Kevin, are you able to pop out that survey? All right, I'm not seeing him, so maybe if you could put your responses in the chat box, just which one would you like to see us focus on first for next year? So this has been just a great panel discussion. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Kevin, for that poll. Go ahead and make your selection, and that'll help us with planning for next year. I just want to thank the team. This has been really great. And some of the key takeaways that I wrote down as we were going through this, tell stories, improv, and martial arts as 3 ways to increase your professional skills. Be a mentor and be mentored yourself. As we focus on individuality, helping each person find their passions and their strengths. Showing up makes a difference. And then addressing the hurts as those come up were just some of those key takeaways that I found really helpful. So thank you very much, all of you, for your participation and your insights, and Marcia especially for sharing. I hope that was helpful for people who were able to attend. All right, Amanda. Yep. Call to action.
Yes, I warned you all that we would be soliciting your help. So in addition, by the way, I know that the survey we just issued just had those 3 options. If there is something that you are just dying to either teach or learn, please drop us a line, get in touch via Twitter, via LinkedIn, via email, via Kevin, to let us know. We are all ears as to how we can continue to provide as much value back to you all as possible. But aside from that, if you're not part of the IoT community, what are you doing? No, I'm kidding, but join us. Honestly, the content here is absolutely incredible. As you can see from my colleagues, the caliber of individuals that are part of this community is insane. learning, the amount that you can learn from one another is remarkable. So join us, join the IoT community. We'd love for you to join us specifically on the Women in IoT Center of Excellence. We covered, education today, but we also have our other pillars of awareness and education. If one of those is near and dear to your heart, come volunteer, support us there. We could use a lot more help than we have today. Share us, if today was helpful, if it was interesting, if there was a quote that you took away, share us on social media, tag us, we love to see it. If there's something else that we could be doing even better, let us know. And then finally, just continuing to show up, to contribute, to share your messages through the chat helps us all, in this together, really. So we've just gotten the survey results back. It looks like up first, the request is for technical training, with 55% of the vote going towards that. So that's what you can expect to see from us on the next Slam. And then you've gotten a preview and a peek at topics to come. But as I mentioned, just let us know if there are others out there. So that's it for me on the CTAs.